Welcome to Adulting in the Modern World with Donna and Sahar, a podcast dedicated to help women catalyze their own transformation and engage in their evolution in a conscious way. Two transformational coaches share tools, processes, practices, and wisdom to support you in designing your life in a fun, joy-filled, and abundant way. This is for the woman who is invested in her evolution in an intentional way, takes responsibility for her emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, and financial wellness. This is for the woman that honors the value of wisdom and growth in community. Welcome to Adulting in the Modern World. Let's begin by taking 3 deep breaths. We're going to take these 3 breaths together every time we meet on this podcast. Take a deep breath in and breathe to connect to the cosmos. Hold the breath and gently exhale. Take another deep breath in. Hold the breath, connecting now to your heart. And gently exhale. And take one more deep breath in. Hold the breath and connect to the earth. Gently exhale.
Welcome, everybody, to our 7th episode of Adulting in a Modern World. Today, we're really excited to talk about relationships. We are in the month of February while we're recording this, and Valentine's Day is around the corner. And so I'm sure that a lot of people have the topic of love on their mind. They have the topic of relationship probably in their minds as well. And so today, Donna and I are going to share from 2 different perspectives what love, relationships, intimacy mean for us, how we've worked in our journey and path to define that for ourselves, and a few nuggets about what love really means. So we're really excited to talk about this because I think, whether you're in a relationship or you're single, you're probably having some of these conversations and topics come into mind, especially as we get closer to Valentine's Day. So let's dive in.
Well, Sahar, I think love is the ultimate state. It's the ultimate way of being. It's the ultimate way of framing the perspective of how you look at your life and how you look at yourself. And in terms of what that means, in terms of what that means for how you treat your partner, and I'll be speaking a lot about, how to be in relationship on this podcast and this episode together, and Sahar will speak to the singles out there. And really, my view is that the work that we need to do is in all situations. So whether you're in relationship, whether you're single, the work is constant, people. It's every day. It's a check-in that you need to do with yourself. And, if you have a partner, that you do with your partner on a weekly, monthly, yearly, and so on basis. And so when we come from the aspect of love and self-love, I was telling Sahar before we pressed record that you actually end up seeing your partner in a much brighter light. You end up loving your partner so much more, and you forgive the socks on the floor, and you forgive, the cupboards being open instead of closed, and you forgive certain things. You actually just kind of gloss them over because your heart is so full, in fact, overflowing. And if you've taken the steps, which we'll really talk about today, to cultivate that fullness of being in love with yourself, of being in love with life, of having that open-hearted feeling on a daily basis. When you can do that, then being in relationship, with all of its ups and downs, with all of its triggers, with all of the stuff that it brings up, and I'm sure we'll dive into that today as well. All of that can be looked at, it can be talked about, it can be solved in a healthy relationship, in a functioning relationship. So, Sahar, give us a little nugget of wisdom of how someone, especially, it's after the holidays, There's excitement around holidays, but there's also a lot of triggers around that too. And so, even though it's a very, light and festive season, I find a lot of people have difficulty over these, months of November, December, and well into Valentine's Day. So, how can one develop the strategies and the practices on a daily basis to really create love within themselves and therefore attract circumstances of love around them?
Really, really good question. Especially because of COVID. So I know a lot of people who are single or were single before COVID, and so now dating has become a bit more challenging because you have much different dynamics to navigate through and stuff like that. And so I'm sure that if some of the ladies listening to this, if you felt like I felt these feelings myself too at the beginning of March of last year, of like, oh my God, what does this mean? In terms of when it comes to relationships and things. So I've really taken it as an opportunity to deepen my own healing process and to really deepen my own transformational processes. There's a Belgian psychotherapist named Esther Perel who says that you're always in relationship with relationship. And so even if you're single, you're always in relationship with the concept of it. So it's a really good time to work on the dynamics that you notice yourself being in terms of when you were in relationship. And it's and I think it's a space that we're always able to improve. So for me, one of the things that I do is my spirituality and really anchoring my identity in being love. So it's not that I need to go outside of myself to seek love or to get love. It's really every single morning. One of the things that I'm embedding in my practices as of late is to do a really deep meditation where I anchor in the energy of divine love and feel that into all of my cells to really like know that that's where I'm coming from. And so, as Donna was saying, in terms of manifestation, you're going to be radiating love, and so you're going to be in love all the time no matter what. And so I think that that's one of the key tips I would say for myself is in my daily practices. When I start my day, I start it from that consciousness. And there is a book called Power versus Force by David Hawkins, and he talks about vibration. And so being in the vibration of love isn't just so that you can attract a partner. Being in the vibration of love actually helps your health, your success in your work. For example, it's going to support your other relationships, whether you're an aunt, a sister, a mother, or anything in that sense. So I think being in the vibration of love is a daily practice for me, and it's something that I would say is what I use.
Whether we're in relationship with, another person, or we are simply with the concept of relationship, all right? The work that Sahar mentioned is what you need to do always. So I'll speak on a personal level now. I've been in a long-term relationship and for the last, X amount of years. And what we're finding is that COVID brought up, well, it was one of the instigators that helped to bring up all of our triggers, on both sides. And we had to work through it. So if the choice is to be together, to stay together, and to grow together, because for me that's the ultimate, right? Is to actually grow together. We had to work through it, which meant individually and together. And so what I'm sharing today is that if you're whether you're single or with a partner, the work is constant. And one of the things is what I like to do is a daily check in. So, how am I being, acting, how am I on a daily basis with my family, with my partner? Am I showing up in the way that I would like to show up? Because if a trigger arises and my habitual response is to get mean or angry or to be quiet or to, hide away or to ignore the issue, um, then that's not helping the relationship and that's not being in the vibration of love. So that needs a lot of self work and that needs a lot of self awareness. And we talk about a lot of these practices in all of our episodes. So you could actually take them, from those other episodes as well. And in this specific one, it's really about how can I remain in a vibration, a loving, gratitude filled vibration where I wake up and I feel in love with life. And that's how I want to wake up every morning. And that's how I want to go to sleep every night. And one of my little tricks, some people write gratitude lists and so on. If I'm ready to just pass out and go to sleep and I don't have my notebook nearby, one thing, one thing that went so well, one thing that I truly enjoyed that's not necessarily work related, it's family or relationship related or related to myself in terms of my personal growth. One thing that went really well that day, and how did it make me feel? And so that starts to create a personality. It starts to create personal traits and behaviors that you then replicate on a daily and weekly basis. So then ideally, it helps you show up as that ideal partner to the person that you're with or the person that you're attracting.
So, Donna, can you share a little bit about how you cultivate your or grow that piece of sovereignty, or that, like, how do you do the work while you're in relationship? Because I find that that's really challenging. So when people get into a relationship, they're in that honeymoon phase, they're very excited. And so, what happens to the woman who may feel like, am I losing myself? Am I not losing? Or can I do work on myself while I'm in relationships? So sometimes people have this belief or idea that they can't necessarily do that work of transformation while they're in relationships. So can you speak a little bit on that from your experience or just from your wisdom?
That honeymoon phase, it envelops you, right? It takes you in, it sucks you in. And honestly, it's so fun. And you know what? I think to some degree, absolutely live it and be cautious. Be cautious if you're losing yourself to the concept of the relationship. If you're idolizing the person that you're with, putting them up on a pedestal in a way that takes away from the care that you normally give to yourself. And I think that tends to show up months later. It's not always evident at the beginning because you want to give and you want to see them and you want to spend time with them. And honestly, those are some of our best memories, right? When looking back in a relationship. And then it's really about finding a pace that works. So where the give and take is pretty equal. I know. Are you giving so much that you feel depleted, and is the other person reciprocating? These are red flag moments where you do need to check in and say, okay, is my cup being filled by myself and my partner? Or do I need to do all the filling and running around of everyone's cups? And that's going to drain you. It's going to be unhealthy. It's going to set up an unrealistic expectation and standard in the relationship. So for me, it's really about checking in on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, yearly basis. So what does that mean? I check in with myself so I know, how am I feeling? How am I being treated? How am I treating myself? If I'm getting lost, well, what are the activities that I've put aside? Can I start slotting those back in? Because I want to feel again, I want to feel like myself. How many women say that? I've lost myself and I want to feel like myself again. So that's a way to do it, is to carve out time to re-engage with the people and the activities that made you who you are, that made you the person that met this other, human. And another really important concept is not just the self check-in, it's the check-in with your partner. So developing communication language that you're both able to contribute to. So where can you share your pain or your discomfort or something that just doesn't feel right? Can you share that with your partner? Can you find ways to rectify those situations? Can you find solutions? Are they open to speaking about these things? And so these are other kind of, red or green flag moments of, is this person compatible with me? Are they the right person that I can actually open up to and grow with and share with? And so all of that I find it shows itself within the first few months, first year, and definitely beyond in a relationship. And so setting yourself up for success from the beginning, I think is the absolute most important. So if you're single right now, think of it as a huge bonus to be able to set yourself up for success for the relationship that you eventually attract and get into, so that you develop the systems that are going to allow that relationship to flourish and grow.
I also want to say that for any women that are listening who may be in their like late 20s, early 30s, or even, any other age, but I find in that age group, there's a lot of beliefs about, especially if you want to have children and you want to have a family and stuff like that. There is so much peer pressure and there is so much social pressure on hurry up and find the one, or hurry up and find a husband, or and I know this is like speaking to heterosexual women, so I'm speaking from that perspective. um, and so I just want to say to not make those decisions from a place of fear, because a lot of the times we hurry up and we bypass all those red flags in that dating phase because we're coming from fear. We're coming from a checklist place of like, I need to get this checklist, like, fulfilled. And so that's why I say is use every single day as an opportunity to anchor in your true self, of your soul self. And so when you connect from that place of knowing that you're a love and fear are different vibrations. And so back to that whole matrix of the vibrational grid, if you're coming from fear, you're going to attract things that are going to be from that kind of a vibration. And so that's my wisdom nugget for anybody who is in that same place or who has been feeling those pressures, is to really give yourself that permission to claim your sovereignty from that standpoint, and be in love, be in the energy of love in your body on a cellular level. So then whatever you create is created from that place and not from a place of I need to do this because it's expected of me or of society, etc.
Well said, Sahar. And I'll add to that by saying you are allowed to be picky. You're allowed to have standards. You're allowed to have your, non-negotiables and the things that you're a little bit more loose about. You're allowed to have all of those things, and the right person will pick up at the exact right spot, meaning they're going to grow with you. They're going to notice your shortcomings and allow you the room to grow. They're going to help you strengthen, you're going to help you develop, and you're going to do the same for them. And so when there is that flexibility and pliability in a relationship, that's when it's really fun, because you'll ride through the ups and downs and you'll know that you're going to get out. You'll know that, oh, I can see, the light. And yet, while you're riding those ups and downs, the help and the support will be there because you've built it in already to the relationship. And so when I say be picky, what I really mean is allow yourself to have standards. Allow yourself to hold yourself to a degree where you're not going to settle for something that doesn't feel right, that feels unhealthy. And I'm not talking about being picky about the color of his hair or the way he dresses. Be open to those things. That's where the real surprises are. And even to the nature of his work, to the nature of his personality. I mean, these are things where a lot of variability can occur, that if you open your heart to those changes, you don't want to necessarily attract the same type of partner all the time. I can almost guarantee you don't want to do that. You want someone who's growing and shifting. And so be open to the possibility of meeting someone that you may never have considered as a partner, because perhaps he is able to meet you. I was going to say fill, but you're the one who's filling your emotional needs, but he will meet you and be able to contribute to your emotional needs.
And it's also really important to highlight the piece of giving and receiving love, that it's love is an active verb, it's a practice. So it's not like, absolutely, I totally agree with having standards and maybe raising your standards if you had your sense of self be rooted in like, woundedness or low self-worth. We talked about this in several other episodes before, of first make sure that you're rooting your sense of self in self-worth of your sacred being. But I also think that we have to remember that love is an active verb. It's something that we have to take time to practice learning about, especially if we didn't grow up with healthy dynamics being mirrored to us of what relationships look like. So, if we talked about in our first few episodes about, 0 to 7 being a very powerful time to imprint a lot of things in our subconscious, you have to do that work of kind of self exploration, self discovery, self recovery. I would say first, as like to start that work, really don't expect your partner to be that person that comes and heals those parts of you. Don't expect your partner to be that person that comes to revalidate you as being worthy. If you can't do that for yourself, then you're not going to be able to give love either. And so I just want to say that it's not just this perspective of like, like a high nose or whatever, and being like, setting your standards like that. It's absolutely have your standards, but there's also a level of humility and humbleness of saying, I'm going to be willing to do my work of healing myself, of transforming my story about who I am, so that where I'm coming from is my cup being full. And so it's like the figure eight, where both of you are sharing from your full cup with one another. And so that it's not like depleting the other person or expecting the other person to fill you up.
And the standards I'm referring to, Sahar picked up on that right away, is the fact that if I'm investing time and years into my personal growth and my personal um, ability to heal myself and look at my trauma and look at my wounds and, be able to um, understand why I react in certain ways, in doing that, what I mean by raising your standards is that know that you can attract a partner that is also doing his work and that has also done his work. And the fact that I've seen that with my own eyes, I know it's available out there. I get goosebumps now for all of you out there, thinking about that, because it is happening. And actually the men that are currently available, the amount of shifting and growing that is occurring on this planet at a rapid pace is absolutely phenomenal. So know that you can have that person that is shaping himself, growing himself, learning from his mistakes, creating a new and better identity through the lens of how he wants to be as a human being. That's all available. So if you're doing that work, continue it with a positive um, notion that you're doing this for you and you're doing it for the relationship that you're calling in. And for those in relationship, I do the work because I'm doing it for myself and creating the phenomenal relationship that I know I deserve and that my partner deserves as well. And so you can create it from within. Sahar touched on that earlier. Sometimes I think it's a little bit harder to do when you're in it, because I was joking with her earlier. You're waking up with him, you're sleeping with him, he's around all the time, and you're trying to do your own inner work, and so is he, ideally. And so doing the work in the relationship sometimes can be a little bit tricky, but wow, the results and the outcome is through the roof phenomenal.
Yeah, it can absolutely be a spiritual process for sure. It could be an alchemical process in terms of being in relationships. Um, Especially when both partners are willing to alchemize and to phoenix together, and to use the triggers and the shadows that show up in that dynamic with one another as opportunity, and they lean in and they say, you know what, we can use this to heal and to grow together. Because when like as we said before, is we will create what we have been used to for a very long time. And so making sure that we take the reins of our lives from that place of sovereignty is really important, to wake up, to do that self-awareness work, so that you can design, just as we were saying, designing a life consciously, you want to design a relationship consciously as well. And when you do want to design a relationship consciously, your stuff will show up. All the misalignments will show up. And that's okay, as long as, both parties are willing to work on those things. And so I think it's a journey. I think our relationship with a relationship is a journey. It's an evolutionary process. And so I just want to say to be compassionate with yourself as well. as these things show up, because you might reflect on your relationship, or if you're single, you might reflect on the previous relationships you've been in, or maybe looking at your current situation. And so if any judgment is showing up or anything like that, just want to say to be compassionate, to see it as a process, to see it as a journey, and to congratulate yourself for all the small wins that you've been doing by making those small changes. I'm sure that if you reflect back, because sometimes we may get stuck in like loops and patterns of repeating the same thing over and over again, but I'm sure if you look back, you've noticed small minor tweaks in all of those relationships that you've gone through. And so be compassionate, be gentle. That's what I would say. And if it's always something that I think we're going to be learning about. So educate yourself. There are so many amazing relationship coaches out there on YouTube. Obviously be selective and be discerning of what you take in, because sometimes people will repeat the same things that are unhealthy in some ways. So just be discerning, but definitely it's something that I find is like I'm a student of forever, I would say, and it's part of my evolutionary process as well.
I was going to add that as well, for people to really educate themselves, whether you're in a relationship or looking for one. Um, do the work, read books, reach out to relationship coaches. There's so much stuff online, so many great resources, like Sahar said. And I personally dove into that um, for a solid year before I met the person I'm with now. And I still think back to things that I was listening to and still apply them to how that can help the situation now, because we're always in learning mode. We're always adapting and developing and growing. So that's a really, really good point, Sahar. And I'd love to end this on the note of, you know, celebrating your wins, like Sahar said, that gives you a glow, that gives you a radiance. If on a daily basis you're thinking about something wonderful that you did, something wonderful that happened, and you're celebrating all of your wins in life, that is going to naturally give you this beautiful boost, this beautiful glow, which will make you more loving. It will show, the love in your heart and the light in your heart.
We hope you have an amazing Valentine's Day, whether you're in a relationship or whether you are single. And we hope that you celebrate yourself if you are single, and to have a beautiful, amazing Valentine's Day celebrating the relationship with yourself as well.